Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 1st May 2018. As today being the May Day, I have expected some articles on history of labor movement in India. Surprisingly, even Hindu did not cover the labor movements and changing labor structure in India. That's very surprising in today's newspaper for me. So the first article, Local Democracy in Disarray. It is about 73rd, 74th Amendment Act. You know, 73rd, 74th has created certain structural changes and also functional changes. Structurally, new organizations have come into existence. Elections are supposed to be regular once in 5 years. Like District Planning Committee, Metropolitan Planning Committee, these were created as planning units. And the third thing is there has to be devolution of finances. All these things are meant to achieve something called social justice and economic development. Now, there was a parallel thing which was happening, that is economic reforms. If you look back, economic reforms were very successful in India, but democratic decentralization that was expected to create a responsive participatory governance in India did not click so much. What can be the reasons? This is what is highlighted over here. Let us see the reasons from federalism perspective and also states perspective. One is, if the functions and powers are more delegated to the states feel that these are becoming anemic. It means the center has more powers, and the little powers which they have, if they delegate it to the state, local governments, they will be starved of functions and finances. That's why there is no willingness for them to transfer the functions, finances, or functionaries. And second is, many of the states, these did not constitute district planning committees, state finance commission, etc. If you see the Finance Commission of India, its recommendations are generally accepted by the union government. In the case of the states, Finance Commission reports are not highlighted, and accepting their recommendations is not mandatory. If you take the state government of Kerala, there we have People's Plan, and also state finance commissions are mandatory. Acceptance of these recommendations is mandatory. And along with that, among three tiers of the Panchayati Raj system, what are the functions that have to be taken up at each level are clearly demarcated. That's what we call it as People's Plan. So now, ineffectiveness from the functional level, if you observe, parastatals were growing. What are these parastatals? Rural development agencies, DRDA, all these things which are created by law in some states, which are created by executive order in some other states, have become the parallel development agencies. The second thing is, after liberalization, societies and user groups, these have increased at the local level. These user groups bypassed the existing Panchayati Raj system. It means decentralization has took a different form, where alternative bodies such as user groups, stakeholder associations have become more important than democratically elected rural government at the local level. And further to this, if we see the total finances which the rural government and urban government together generate from their own sources of revenue is less than 2%. In this rural government situation is much worse, which is just 0.3%. This clearly shows to what extent they are dependent on higher levels of government for finances. Whenever there is a greater dependency on higher levels rather than on the people, obviously accountability will be very weak in such a system. And further to this, another aspect is the total amount of the share of the local governments in public sector expenditure is less than 7%. All the statistical drives us only one point. The point is local governments are not effective. In this context, Finance Commission of India, it has got some connections with the local governments. When 73rd 74th Amendment Act has come into existence, Article 280 subclause 3 is also amended to bring in State Finance Commission of India certain recommendations to the State Finance Commission to improve their financial position. In this context, 11th Finance Commission has spoken or gave grants for creating the accounts infrastructure. And 13th Finance Commission, it is a drastic step. So it has linked transfer of finances from the state governments to the local governments to the devolution of the divisible pool of taxes from the center to the states. Let's understand this. From center to the states under Article 270, funds have to be transferred. These are called divisible pool of taxes. How much is being devolved under this article is also linked to the devolution which the states make to the panchayats. I'll give you more money if you are giving more money to the panchayats. That's what is the incentive structure which was devised. And 14th Finance Commission has remarkably increased grants to local governments. In spite of this, the situation is not very encouraging in India. That's what this article talks about. A dangerous incursion. This article is about judicial independence. You know that judicial appointments are a key issue to promote and protect the judicial independence. Whenever it was under the executive control, this sensitive nerve was used to gain the control over the judiciary by the executive. You have famous Hansraj Khanna example. He gave the judgment against to Indira Gandhi during emergency, and he paid with his Chief Justice position. In spite of being the senior most judge, he was not offered the Chief Justice of India position. And second, Mr. A.N. Ray was promoted as the Chief Justice by Rajiv Gandhi government, bypassing the three senior most judges. In this context, the collegium has come up for judiciary to assert its independence. When NJAC has come into existence, the judiciary has stated the same. It can lead to executive control and veto over the judicial appointments, which may compromise the judicial independence. So here few points we need to understand. The collegium is meant to protect the judicial independence, but it has disturbed the executive and judicial balance in appointments. So in this, recently Mr. Joseph, K.M. Joseph, he was recommended by the collegium to be appointed as the judge of Supreme Court. He at present is the Chief Justice of High Court. He hails from Kerala. His mother court is from Kerala. So in this case, there are three reasons which the executive has stated for not elevating him to the judge of the Supreme Court. They are one, he is not sufficiently senior. There are many seniors to him. And he is, his mother High Court is being overly represented in Supreme Court to its size. And third thing, Supreme Court needs more socially balanced representation. So regional balance, social balance and seniority, these are the three factors which are being stated by executive. If you carefully observe, for promoting High Court judges to Supreme Court, it is the merit that has mattered rather than the seniority. In promoting Supreme Court judges to CJI, seniority mattered. And second thing, regional balance and social balance were never important factors or precedents. It means that a person from High Court of Kerala can be appointed as a judge of a Supreme Court, irrespective of a number of judges which are coming from Kerala itself. If you take High Court of Bombay and then Bombay and then this particular Delhi High Court is overly represented in Supreme Court, that cannot be a reason. So finally, Mr. Joseph is responsible for quashing imposition of President's rule in Uttarakhand. It can be stated as a reason for the executive for obstructing his appointment as the judge of Supreme Court. And the second thing, as this matter goes to the collegium recommends his name. In the meanwhile, he crosses his 65 years of age, then he can never become the judge of Supreme Court. It means executive is trying to send a message that if judgments are not favorable to it, probably it can become costly to the career of an individual. The cost of pollution. Here the most important thing for me is environmental Kuznets curve. As the per capita income is increasing, the pollution is also expected to increase and reach to a maximum point. At this maximum point, when per capita income reaches to a reasonable level, then the regulation and the political opposition to pollution is bound to increase, and it takes the central seat in political agenda setting, and slowly then the pollution is expected to decrease. That is the point which is most important to me. environmental cohesion. A shared hero for India and Pakistan. If you remember Bhagat Singh, many of them remember him for his valor. He has to be remembered for his social and economic vision for India. And he is a shared hero for India and Pakistan. If you remember, Hindustan Republic Socialist Association, HRSA, which he is the founder member, it espouses for social equality and then democracy and freedom. Along with that, it also clearly states that universal brotherhood has to be the basis for building the nation. It means sectarian conflicts, communalism, everything has to be denounced. A country that has to be egalitarian has to be created. These ideals, which are supposed to be made or which are supposed to be the part of Bhagat Singh's vision for future. So, rather than valor, his ideas, other ideas, are more remarkable and relevant for today's society. That's what is the thing. Korean Thaw. You know that North Korea South Korea leaders summit is over. Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un have concluded their summit, and there was a positive environment. The existing armistice is expected to conclude as a peace agreement by the May end. And then Mr. Trump is also going to meet Kim Jong-un. So here, previously these high-level contacts have happened or not? Yes, in 1970s. And Jimmy Carter, Clinton era, everywhere these high-level contacts have occurred, but they did not transform into durable peace. That is, lack of commitment on both the sides. United States did not honor its commitment, and at the same time, North Korea also did not move backwards on its nuclear position. Today, Mr. Kim talks about denuclearization, and what exactly it means, no one has clarity. But he states that the testing site will be closed. One thing is clear over here. He wants his regime to be protected, and then there has to be economic development for the nation. In any communist country, if economic development and prosperity do not exist, then the regime can be easily challenged. So these two what he is securing from. Conclave of Southern States. So here, why I felt important is Article 263 of the Constitution. So Article 263, though it has created interstate council with Prime Minister as the head, with cabinet ministers, chief ministers of states as the members, it failed to failed to act as a forum for various issues between the states. So on the 15th Finance Commission, southern states are coming together for the injustice which they are going to meet for change in the consideration of the census. Now 15th Finance Commission is expected to consider 2011 census instead of 1971 census for devolution of the finances from the center to the states under Article 270 of the Constitution. Power Ministry feels to no need to change electrification definition. So what is electrification definition? You know, yesterday Prime Minister claimed India has electrified all its villages. To what extent it is true? So here the definition is if 10% of the village households are having electricity connection and public utility areas have electricity connection and the village if it is connected to the grid, then we can call the village as electrified. But however, there is a program to bring in 100% of the households into electricity. That is Kaushalya program, I think. Shaubhagya program. That is Pradhana Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. So the electrification of all households is next on the agenda of the government. And with regard to electrification, the program which you need to focus for prelims is Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. Headline grabber. This is about Biplab Deb. Manik Sarkar is a renowned statesman according to me. And then probably this is a May Day gift for the Communist Party is the comments of Biplab Deb, and this is not a worth article for discussion. But however, if you take the state of Tripura, the social indicators are the best. If you take of Kerala, the social indicators are best. The problem is economic development. So that's what is the magic of democracy. So one regime provides for the human development, other regime tries to provide for economic development. Probably that balance appears to be missing at the union level. Putin Macron urge strict observance of the Iran nuclear deal. You know, May 12th is the deadline for the President Trump to revise the Iran nuclear deal. And Mr. Hassan Rouhani has clearly stated that no revision of the Iran nuclear deal is on board for Iran. And US accuses Iran of supporting the terrorists, especially Houthi rebels in Yemen and also in Palestine, Hamas in Palestine, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then supporting the Assad regime in Syria, which were all against to the interests of United States of America. Here you need to see the Saudi Arabia too. There is a cold war between Saudi Arabia and Iran in West Asia. Armed Forces Special Powers Act will continue in Nagaland. You know, if any area is declared as a disturbed area, then Armed Forces Special Powers Act can be imposed. So either the union government or the state government can declare it as a disturbed area. So here the paramilitary forces and armed forces gets unlimited powers. So they get protection from prosecution and also they can go for search without warrant. So in this case, the security of the nation is pitched against the human rights in this debate. So obviously there is an opposition for the greater powers to the security forces stating that it is leading to human rights violations. So as of now, it is existing in Nagaland, Manipur other than in the Impal area, and Jammu and Kashmir other than in Kargil and Leh sectors. Everywhere Armed Forces Special Powers Act is in force. But the union government slowly withdrawing it from various areas. In Assam, it is left it to the state government to decide, and in Meghalaya, it was completely lifted. In Nagaland, you know, Naga Peace Accord was signed between Government of India and NSCN-IM Isaac Mubaya. Nagaland Socialist Council, National Socialist Council of Nagaland Isaac Mubaya. So what Mr. Rijiju says is, once this accord comes into action, Armed Forces Special Powers Act will move away. Finally, I gave you the notes that will be available to you at laix.in/CivilsPrep. Thank you very much and all the best.